Hello, Assalamu alaikum, and welcome to Tasha's Tales. Today I have someone really, really special with me. Emma, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I am Emma, Tasha's one of Tasha's newer friends.
Yes. It's been maybe 3 months now, right?
3 months, yeah.
Yeah. So we met in the most unexpected ways, really, didn't we?
We did.
So when the whole kind of conflict in Palestine started back on after the 7th of October, I was posting a lot on my Instagram.
Yeah.
And you were one of the very few people who messaged back or slid into my DMs.
I did slide in.
Yes, you did.
So the reason that I actually started following you to begin with was one of my friends follows you and had reposted, I don't know if I've told you this, had reposted a couple of suggestions of where to go. And there's a place in Chorley that I think you might have gone to, like a play cafe type of place. And I was like, oh, we should go here. And anyway, we didn't go there. But I was following you. And then when you started posting, I kind of, like, being totally honest, took what happened on the 7th of October at face value, like what you see on the news. So then only through social media and things that you and other people that I follow were posting, did I think, oh, hang on, there's two sides to this. Completely ignorant my whole life about what has gone on in the region and specifically between Israel and Palestine. So I educated myself and yay, and slid into your DMs when you were doing your sponsored walk because yeah.
And you were one of the two. So actually there was 3 people who messaged me, and it was Laura who went to one of the demonstrations with me, and then you were messaging me. So obviously we connected.
Yeah.
On that level, there was that empathy, that was that humanity, that kind of that collective feeling of grief, wasn't it? So I've not said this to you, but you sent me your number and was like, let's meet up. And at that point, I was like, I haven't got the capacity for any more friends in my life. I was like, oh, babe, like, I know it's really sad, but I just don't know if I've got the capacity.
Yeah.
But then we still messaged a few more times. I think this was November, December. And then you messaged me in January at some point saying...
I was persistent.
Yes, you were. You did not give up. But yeah, and then you mentioned kind of a play date. And I was like, at that point, I was like, no, I need to do this. You know, you've mentioned meeting up a couple of times, so we need to just do it. We've got children same age. We're both free.
Yeah.
Let's just meet up. And I didn't really have any expectations. I actually thought that would probably be the only time we meet.
Yeah.
That was in my head.
Yeah.
But we met at a soft play with our little girls. And we were there for 3 hours.
Were we there for 3 hours?
Yeah.
We got our money's worth from that soft
play. We totally did. It's an expensive one as well.
Yeah.
And it was probably the best decision of 2024, really.
100%.
Kind of us meeting and connecting. Because although it was Palestine who kind of brought us together, there was so much more kind of within our communication, with our thought process.
Yeah.
That we've seen each other pretty much every week since.
Yeah, we have. In each other's pockets.
Yeah, and I love that. And I think... But what really, really was apparent for me was how many people out there have never ever known about what's happened in Palestine.
Yeah.
Or how many people are suffering in silence in terms of their own feelings as well.
Yeah. Because for me, it feels like, so, I mean, me and my husband have talked about it a lot. But even that in the beginning was kind of difficult because, like, he knew about it and he was like, oh, well, this has been going on for years. I'm like, well, I've only just learnt about it And just because it's been going on for years, why does that mean that we're complacent about this? Why does that mean that we can't talk about this? Like, this is terrible. Like, it's inhuman. Like, you can't just. So anyway, since like forcing my way into his, in with his dialogue as well, like, we're on the same wavelength. Like, just sometimes you just don't feel like. I've woken up on days and felt heavy from it, and like I want to talk about it. I'm so thankful that I have you now, but I've just felt like I can't, because for some reason it feels taboo.
Oh, it is taboo,
and I don't understand why it's taboo. Like, it's just
because it's not our problem, is it? It's in the Middle East. It's not our problem.
Oh, we pop ourselves into other conflicts, though, don't we? And we care so much about them collectively as a country. Like, it's insane to me how we as a country and we as a society, some of us, have handled what is happening and what's been happening over the last nearly 6 months. But yeah, I'm so thankful I have you, and I'm so thankful that I educated myself.
Yeah,
like in school, you learn about certain subjects, the subjects that school wants you to learn about.
Yeah,
and you don't get that wider education.
Yeah, and is it the irony of it though that when we are studying at school, we get to hear about the World War II and kind of what was happening and the genocide, but actually, how much of it is very, very familiar in terms of what's happening now, in terms of that strategic kind of.
It is like a carbon copy. Like, some of the photos that have come out of Palestine from people who are there living it, like, I can compare them to pictures that I remember being horrified from at age 14, reading books and history. So
when we met, I remember I was really, really down. I was struggling with flashbacks, with really, really vivid dreams because of what we were being exposed to. So I had to limit my screen time. Obviously, I appreciate that's a privilege that I have, that I can do that. But I did have to switch off for a little while, but that is people's reality. But for me, it was really, really special that someone, I suppose I'd need to put a little bit of context to it, because I have been aware of the suffering in Palestine all my life, but not in detail. My dad's always spoken about it. It's something that I've been aware of. So for me, I had kind of taken it for granted. I hadn't really thought about it from someone else's perspective. So when you spoke about kind of suffering in isolation, it made me think, oh my goodness, I wonder how many more people are out there like yourself who've been exposed to this absolute crisis in the world. You've done your own research, and now you've got this sadness and all these feelings that you don't have anyone to share with. So well done you for reaching out and talking about it.
It's like it's, I can't really explain. It's like a grief. It's like a collective grief, like it, and you're just like grieving for people that you don't know and will never meet. But they're like your people.
Faces that will stay with you forever.
100% faces and children's faces that are just going to stay with me forever.
We did do something really cute together though, didn't we? Because there was a mural of Mortaz, a journalist in Palestine. So we made a thing of it where me and you went with our girls, we had brunch, and then we took a little photo. And I think, we can't change what's happening, but we can talk about it. We can discuss it. We can share our knowledge. And I think...
And I think as well, I want to make sure that my children grow up, obviously, as not having that exact conversation right now because they're 4 and 2. But as they grow, I want to make sure that they're not in the dark about these things like I was. Like, I had such a privilege to live such a sheltered life. I grew up on the Isle of Man, surrounded by sea, and it's so safe over there. You're not even, you don't even have to worry about, your car being robbed and things like that. You don't have to worry about anything over there. And I want to make sure that my children grow up understanding just how lucky and privileged we are, and they understand what is happening in other parts of the world and the reason behind it.
Yeah.
Because there's so many conflicts that I've just, like I said at the beginning, like taken at face value.
Yeah.
Like
you kind of believe what the media tells you, isn't it? And there's not many people who will actively go out and research and kind of delve into things on their own.
Yeah. How many people, like me included, believed that like America is a victim?
Yeah, my goodness. Yeah.
It's insane. There are innocent people who have died in America who are victims, but America as a,
as a state,
as a government, is like the biggest terrorist out there. It's insane. But growing up, that's not something that you understand or know.
And when we met, and I think, the fact that Palestine brought us together, I think that will always be very, very special to me, because there's not many friendships, I don't think, or I've come across that have kind of formed from kind of such a sensitive subject.
Yeah.
So I feel very, very lucky that you messaged me that day.
And I feel very grateful I was persistent enough to get you.
Yeah. It really helps that our kids, the boys get on and the girls have
and they're
no
in
choice.
the same. Yeah, they have no choice. The girls. Oh, they're so funny.
Yeah.
They're very cute.
They are adorable.
But the boys get on really well, don't they?
They do.
Yeah.
It's really nice. I wanted to mention a little bit, and I don't know how you feel about it, but when we very first met, you mentioned kind of your OCD. Would you like to talk about that?
So after I had Harry, it was about 6 months, and I was feeling sad and a bit numb, and it all came around about the time that COVID kicked off as well. So I went to the doctor and she asked me some questions, and she basically diagnosed me with postpartum depression and referred me to some counsellors. So I had counselling, and within the first 2 sessions, she said, right, I think we need to do some OCD forms, questionnaires.
Wow.
So
for anyone listening who doesn't know what OCD is.
So for me, obsessive compulsive disorder can come in different forms,
which people don't realise. When you say OCD, people just use it as I'm so OCD with my cleaning, for example.
So that can be a symptom, and getting things right in the cupboard or turning everything the same way can be a symptom. For me, it's very much not that, judging by the state of my house right now. For me, I realised when she diagnosed me and questions she was asking about my childhood, I realised that I have had OCD my entire life. Wow. So one of the first, she asked me what my first memories were, first memories in school, and one of my first memories in school, I was in year 1, so I was just a little bit older than Harry is now, and I can remember it clear as day. At the bottom of our school was at sort of on a hill, and then at the bottom was a river. And periodically every winter, if there was heavy rainfall, very often it's on the Isle of Man, the river sometimes will burst its banks.
Okay.
And one of the teachers had said that we could get picked up early. If our parents could come and get us early, that's okay, because the river's burst its banks. It's going to be a pain going the long way, basically. I understand that now, but at the time, I just heard our parents are coming to get us. The river's burst its banks. So my teacher had to, I remember being in the reading corner crying, bundled up, thinking that, convinced that my mum wasn't going to know that the river's burst its banks. She was going to come down and get me, and she was going to drown on the way to get me.
My goodness.
At the age of 6. And I just thought that everybody thinks like this. There's been several things like that since, but that's the very first one. I just thought that everybody everybody thinks like this, so never in my life did I think that it was something to talk about, because I just assume that everybody's mind works in the same way. Like sometimes we have thoughts that aren't very nice, and you move on, kind of thing. Only when she was asking me all my questions, etc., did I realize that actually what I've suffered from my whole life is intrusive thoughts. And so after I had Harry, it took me weeks and weeks and weeks to drive in the car with him, just me and him.
That must be so hard, so hard, because when you have a child, you kind of lose your independence anyway, don't you, to quite some extent. And then not even being able to get in the car and go out, that like further limits you, doesn't it?
Well, it did. And then, so obviously that has helped progress the depression, because I'm just in the house. And it's the idea of going for a walk by the canal. So I can easily do that. I can take the dog, I can take the baby, go for a walk by the canal. But then my mind goes, well, if the dog runs off and doesn't come back, then I have to leave the dog. And then that very quickly becomes, well, this is definitely going to happen. Like, so I can't go for that walk. Or maybe I'll walk by the canal. I'll walk by the canal every morning. I'll do that. So I did it one morning, and then actually I did it a second morning, and I was feeling great. And then a thought came into my head, well, if somebody's watching me that lives here, they'll see that this is my routine every morning, and people who have routines get targeted. So then I stopped doing my walk by the canal.
So really limiting you from living like just an ordinary normal life,
100%,
just doing like basic things. Like...
100%. Just the lovely basic things that you would do with your new baby. I just wasn't doing it. So she diagnosed me. They popped me on a couple of different antidepressants, which the first one was citalopram, and then I did the entire wrong thing. You're not meant to come off it cold turkey. You're meant to
wean yourself off.
Yeah, exactly. But I did, because at the same time, it's so strange. So I'm suffering on this side, but I know that I want another baby.
Oh, right, okay.
So these two things kind of, my body...
That's a lot mentally to kind of come to terms with anyway, right?
That's tons. Luckily, my body was like, you don't need another baby yet for 6 months. So Edie hung on until September. But because I knew I wanted to start trying, I didn't want to be on any antidepressants, any pills. The doctor's like, you need to keep taking them. They won't affect your chances of pregnancy. But just mentally, I know that...
The side effects and everything else. And also, I think sometimes, getting a diagnosis probably helps people. Just putting a name to your feelings. It kind of helps you understand why you behave or think the way you do, because then you can put in your own coping mechanisms in place.
Yeah, definitely. And it's like, as well as the intrusive thoughts with OCD and those intrusive thoughts that came so early, it was other things that are completely illogical. Like, in your reasonable mind, you know that you don't have to do this, but the OCD mind is like, but just do it in case. So for instance, flicking the switch, I'd flick the switch the right amount of times.
Oh, really?
And if I'd not flicked, so if I'd stop at 15 but I needed to flick the switch to 17, something in my head would be like, well, you need to flick the switch. It sounds insane. It sounds bizarre.
No, it's your reality, isn't it?
Something in my mind would be like, you need to flick the switch or tap the pen or whatever it is, just little tiny insignificant things. You need to do it X amount of times or this will happen.
Wow, Emma, I did not know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that at all.
And this side of the brain is like, don't do that, because that is ridiculous. This is not going to happen because you've flicked your switch 2 extra times. But then the OCD brain is like, well, just do it anyway. Because then you're covered, kind of thing. Like, you've covered your back.
How do you manage that then?
Sometimes,
like 4 years later.
So that side of it isn't as prevalent anymore. That was a lot more when I was younger. and it's something that I could identify from being younger. I am much more equipped as an adult to let my reasonable brain override that.
Wow, excellent.
And that was before I got diagnosed. I could be like, it's uncomfortable. It is uncomfortable to sit with it and be like, no, I'm not going to do that.
You're fighting constantly, aren't you?
Yeah, constantly fighting. I'm less able to do it when it comes to, for instance, like checking on the kids. Like going, oh, I just knocked my microphone, apologies. Go in, check on them, they're okay. Yeah. Much more when they were younger. I'm a little bit easier with it now, but
it's something you have to keep a tab on.
It's yeah.
And I remember, sorry, I'm going to bring Palestine back, but I know when kind of you learned about what was happening in Palestine, seeing the children and the families, you know, being killed, I know that affected your OCD, didn't it?
100%. You just, it's like your worst nightmares are happening to other people, and you're seeing it, you can see it, and you just see your little people's faces in their little people's faces.
Yeah.
And yeah, oh God, the intrusive thoughts. But it's like, intrusive thoughts for me are the worst thing that could possibly happen. Like, we'll be driving over the bridge from the Trafford Centre, you know, where the AJ Bell Stadium is. I hate driving over that bridge. I'm like, what if a lorry hit me? We'd go over there, kind of thing. It's the worst thing. And because I'm a creative as well, it's like vivid.
Yeah.
Exactly what would happen. Yeah. Like, how would the bones break? It's all of that kind of horrible, and it's like a film, like pictures in my head. And so seeing everything unfold, and day after day of, there's still no ceasefire, there's still no hope, there's still no aid getting in, there's still no nothing. It's like the worst intrusive thoughts, but they're right there.
Yeah,
they're happening to someone.
It's not actually just thoughts.
It's not reality. Thoughts. It's right there.
Gosh, I hadn't thought about it like that, you know, Emma. But you're so right, because we see like horror films and we see things on the TV, and it's not real, so you can kind of like make sense of it because you think that's just made up. But now what we're seeing, you think, oh my goodness me, and I can't imagine kind of how heightened those emotions, thoughts and feelings would be given when, you know, you're suffering from an illness like OCD, because ultimately that's what it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
I just think OCD or these kind of discussions are really, really important, because how many times do we sit in silence and are too afraid to speak, too embarrassed to speak, fear of being judged, whether it's talking about Palestine,
it's taboo, we can't talk about that.
You know, people are afraid of being called anti-Semitic when that's completely not the case at all.
No, absolutely not.
But I think it's really important to hold those conversations.
100%. 100%. But between talking about Palestine and, you know, talking about other taboo subjects, like, we need to have these conversations. We need to get them out there, because, like, how are we ever gonna, if you've got something that's living inside of you and you need to talk about it, it needs an outlet.
Yes, yeah.
You need to find somebody that you can speak to about it. And
it's so important, isn't it? Because I think those feelings can quickly turn into something
despair.
Despair.
Despair,
or
and
resentment, or lots of other things that we might not even think of. Which is why I think it is important to reach out. And actually, there's no shame in reaching out to people. Like, it's okay to reach out and be persistent. Like you,
definitely. But that was completely out of my comfort zone.
Was it?
Totally out of my comfort zone.
So you've never slid into anyone's DMs before?
Never. You're my first. My first pleasure. Totally out of my comfort zone. But I was like, no, this needs to be talked about. And if I can't talk about it in my own home comfortably, then I need to find somebody to talk about it with.
And like, we don't talk about it all the time, but I know there's that mutual respect and understanding
that if
one of us needs to, we can. And again, I am quite lucky in that a lot of my friends feel the same kind of passion and have the same kind of feeling. So I've had that outlet. I have been around people day in, day out where I've been able to vocalize my feelings and my thoughts.
Yeah.
But you hadn't had that for months.
No.
And, I'm just glad that that you can just speak to me, or if you want to know more, I can signpost you or direct you to others that might be able to. So I think it's really nice.
Yeah, definitely.
And also, this won't be the last time we speak, because since knowing you, there's so much more to you, Emma, that I think we need a whole other episode.
I'm a lot.
No, you're not. You're a whole lot of loveliness. But there's so much more.
There's so many layers.
There are so many layers, and I love it. And I think we're going to get you back on, and we're going to talk about your creative side.
Oh, okay.
And we're going to talk about some of your travel stories, where you've been, what you've been up to, and I look forward to it. Yeah. But thank you. I try and make these episodes not too long to begin with, because
that episode could have been a lot.
Yeah, I want to leave people wanting more. Yeah. So, anything else you would like to say before we part ways?
Just that don't be scared to speak to people you don't know about things you're unsure of.
Yeah.
Because generally, I like to think that people are good.
Yeah, I agree completely. And if they're not, you soon find out.
Oh yeah, 100%. People show you who they are.
Yeah, it doesn't take much. And I think I'm hoping this podcast will kind of reinstate that to people, that just go out, don't be shy, don't be afraid to reach out, because like I've said before, some of my closest friends, I have met them through social media, and I will speak to you soon.
Bye.